Welcome back to the season finale recap of the season finale of season 8 of Love is Blind. This is Love is Kimes, the internet's favorite Love is Blind recap show. David Dennis Jr. dressed so resplendently today. David, before we get into everything that happened, this was a great finale.
There's been so much talk about this season kind of being more in the snoozy of the season, especially coming off of DC. Especially coming off of DC and how crazy that was. Yeah. The finale was the payoff. This definitely gave us everything we wanted.
It was kind of like, not to always bring it back to football, but when everyone thinks it's going to be a super high scoring game and then it ends up being 10-3,
right.
Although it's kind of the reverse, because right. I think we all thought we all season long do the will they or won't they say I do. And we were like, everybody's getting married. Everybody's getting married. Yeah. Everybody's getting married. Not everybody got married.
I think I had 4. I think from the very beginning, I was like, this is going to be the most yeses, the most marriages we have coming out of a season. And was wrong. I think last week I had all yeses. I think I was all yeses last week. Oh my God.
There's definitely some thematic resonance across the nose, shall we say? Yes. That we can get into. I think there's also reasons why we were surprised. Pardon me. I have some questions about editing, about things we maybe weren't shown. So we're gonna unpack it all because I knew watching these that you would have thoughts on that as well. Let's start, of course, with where the last episode ended, with where this one picked up. At the beginning, you and I were a split decision on whether or not Sara would say no. To remind everyone, I thought, no way, this woman is just zooming past all these red flags. She doesn't care. But then at the end of last week, I rewatched the final 10 minutes and we discussed this. I was like, this does not look like a woman who's about to get married. She looks sick to her stomach. And oh my God, David, she said no. So just before we get into her explanation for it, give me your immediate reaction to her saying no to Ben.
Sara.
I
owe you an apology. I know you're watching.
I was not familiar with your game.
I was not at all familiar with your game. We made a graphic that said some Black Lives Matter or something like that, making fun of you for how you seem to just take Ben at his word, all this stuff, ignore your sister. I apologize. You have responded tremendously in a great moment. You got it. I was very unfamiliar with your game, Sara. You got it.
She stood on business.
Stood up on it.
Which raises some questions about what business we're a show. Well, okay, so when she says no, she says, I love you so much, but so we never see his answer, by the way. Right. It's taken for granted that he would have said yes. We don't know that. But she says, I've always wanted a partner to be on the same wavelength as me. So he says, cool, but we're going to stay together. And she's like, we'll talk about it.
Kind of a jerk move, though, on his part to put her on the spot.
Moment.
Yes, absolutely.
She gets in the car, and this is what I wanted to address with you. She's talking to her sister and her mom, and then she does some talk to camera, basically explaining how she got here. And I thought this was fascinating because there's a couple things she said that really jumped out to me. She says, She goes back and kind of recaps some of their disagreements, how she mentioned how much Black Lives Matter is important to her. And he would say he didn't know his church's views on things like homosexuality and equality. She's like, it's really important for me, like you were talking about, to see eye to eye on things like equality, religion, the vaccine.
So
face when she said the vaccine.
Bring back the lean up, David, on the because I was like,
I know.
But first of all, in the van, her sister was holding in this eating grin the entire time. was like,
okay, yes. Credit to Sara's sister for keeping a straight face. I have some theories about that too.
Yeah, she was trying so hard to just be like, okay, I'm with you, I'm support you. Then Sara goes, he didn't know what his church's views were, and she had to reel it in. She goes, ha ha. yes, that's interesting. Like she was through the moon that this thing did not work out.
She also said, Sara, I want to get back to the sister in a second, but Sara also said, and this is something that you and I discussed when we talked about these women and these men, and I love that she said this. There was no curiosity on his part. Yeah. I want to be with someone who's curious about my brain and shows me that. And I loved that she said that, because I think this whole dynamic is going to raise a lot of questions about, can two people from different worlds be together? And is a woman just like saying no to a guy because they don't have the same politics or religion? And I think in saying that, she made it very clear that she was open to the possibility of being with someone with different beliefs or from a different background, but not somebody who was actually closed off to learning. And I thought that was a really important distinction that she made.
Yeah. And we talked about it last week. It was very sort of alarming that he was like, this is making me tired.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to talk about this.
Shutting it down.
Shutting it down. And she was moving towards him. Like at the beginning, when the thing in the pods was him saying, I'm willing to learn. I'm sure we'll figure this out. Yes. But what we saw through the rest of the season, she went to his church. She listened to his church pods. We never saw him making that effort. Never saw him reading her books. We just saw him like hanging around gay people. Like we never saw him like actually trying to meet her halfway. I think he just figured it was going to blow off and it'll be fine. But I want to talk about the vaccine thing. Because I rewatched it, right? I rewatched that portion a lot. And what she says is, we didn't agree on this and that. And then she goes, the vaccine, it was almost as if the producer off camera said, and the vaccine, and she was responding to it as if like it was like something that they hadn't, because we talk about, I got to talk about the editing. We didn't see the vaccine conversation come up. Never saw it. It seemed, if you watch it back, as if the producer may have said it off camera that, hey, that was another thing. And then she was like, yeah, vaccine, right. Because she was acknowledging that happened, but maybe wasn't sure that she could talk about it on camera.
I think that they must have had a conversation about it on camera that was not shown. The obvious implication is that this woman, who is a nurse, by the way, a healthcare professional, found out that he was against the COVID. And again, I don't want to, it's not we don't know. She didn't say that explicitly. We're making assumptions.
Vaccines in general.
Yeah. Well, who knows the extent?
Who knows what vaccine? Right.
That's a huge, it's a shame that I think it would have been a really interesting conversation to see. And we always talk about how this show is suddenly willing to kind of hit the third rail of reality TV and show us politics conversations.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was either a bridge too far or if it was off camera, but there was an editing decision made to include it. To your point, that's a really good observation. And it just honestly made me wonder, how much more between this woman and this man weren't we shown?
Yeah. And this is a bigger conversation about this season in general, because this episode was all about things we did not know until the decision was made at the altar, right? Every couple that said no, they revealed something new to us that was not happening in the season. So the question is, was this intentional editing to make us feel like they were all careening towards a yes, or were these things that were left out, or there was just so much? Is this now just a function of the show in the 8th season, where people know how the show works?
To that point of what is shown and what is not, that leads to these major surprises, which is what you're talking about. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think a lot of it is editing. I think creating suspense is very important, which we started off this episode by saying it was an amazing finale. So Netflix, you did it.
Yes.
We have to give them credit for creating suspense. However, there are conversations I would have liked to seen. I would have actually been interested in seeing some of these doubts that these women had earlier on. I have a theory that I would like to run by you, which is I think her family knew the whole time. So that's part of the reason why the sister was able to keep such a state.
She knew that she was saying no the whole time.
I think she knew the whole time. So because I went back and watched the end of last episode, the 10 minutes, the scene where her sister and her sister's partner the sister's like, I just hope she's not doing this for others. I think she was talking about the reverse, which is that she knew she was going to say no. And she was saying she was just hoping that she was doing it for herself and not like her sister.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, the sister, let me tell you, watching this wedding, she wasn't surprised by nothing that was happening. She knew all of it. She
was ready.
They had conversations.
Yeah.
Think about the conversation she had with her stepdad. Her stepdad was like, "Are you sure he's the sharpest tool in the shed?" This family had conversations about this man that we were not shown.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm with you on that. They seem to be in lockstep about this, and they were not. I think what was interesting, the mom though may have been more surprised than everybody else, because she was kind of getting the breakdown like it was the first time she was hearing this.
Yeah,
the sister was just ready, like she was running out there after her, like they were about to go have a party. So
Ben, I'm just gonna say this: I don't think he was that bummed.
Notes here: Ben, don't give a That's what I got in my notes. I don't think he cared at all. He
couldn't even work up a little fake tear.
Right. He didn't even do that. He was like, cool, whatever. I'm going to pray at the end. Like, and maybe it was just the TikTok that was in my head about this, was that like, that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. And she said, hey, the guy just wanted fame. He was happy to be famous, all this stuff. Like maybe that I just did not feel the vibe that this dude was hard. We will see a real legitimate heartbreak this episode. Ben was not it.
Yeah. I even think like, the desire, let's keep dating. It was a mix of like, he seemed to genuinely like her, and maybe wanting to save a little face.
Right. But do you think he was surprised? Do you think that he was taken aback by this? Because we have, I think on the scale of this episode, we have genuine shock on one. We have possibly they both knew. And then here's in the middle where I don't know what Ben knew and did not know going into the altar.
I think he probably had his suspicions. Again, I think this woman was more dubious than we saw. And also, again, I keep going back to the conversation they had on their final date where he was so annoyed that she was pressing him on the church stuff. I think it's impossible if they had that conversation and he was like, we keep having this conversation. Why are you asking me about it? I'm like, oh, okay, like this man knows it's not a slam dunk. Sure. Yeah. I feel like, and I just like, look, some commenters felt we were too hard on Ben. I'm just, the way he spoke vaguely about these important topics to her, to me, was kind of a form of deceit that I just am all too familiar with. And I see all too often, which is people not wanting to actually express their beliefs with their chest. Yeah. I just feel that way.
And also, I just think he was just like, whatever, when we get married, I'll just like shut her down. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Yeah. Like, I just think he just didn't think that she would, I mean, that's another thing we see all the time. Like he was going to be like, look, we'll be married and she'll come to church. And like she'll shut all that annoying equality stuff up when we're married. Like I don't want to hear it,
I think that's what, again, always would bother me so much about this man. It would be one thing if he actually expressed views or took real stances or explained his thinking, but it just felt like he was trying to his way through this thing and like get away. Like I'd not get away, but like, there are couples who don't agree on everything. And there are couples who one has a religious belief and one doesn't. It is a real thing that happens in this world, but I don't feel like that's what we were seeing.
Right.
Like, I think she nailed it at the end when she said, I felt like he genuinely didn't want to know my mind.
Yeah.
And I think listen, again, power rankings, we'll get to at the end, but I think this woman saw it a lot more clearly than it seemed for much of this season, and then we realized that at the very end with her.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, there was I'm sure there were more doubts that they didn't show. I'm sure, and actually, you know what, the edit in creating suspense was actually pretty unfair to Sara, right? Because we got this character of somebody who was going along with this dude who was shutting her sister down, and like for whatever it's worth, for the last 3 weeks, the entire internet has been like talking about how she's this like, complicit fake sort of person that's fake activist and like going along with this dude. And there is a version of this where she has real doubts and is really, really much more strong in these beliefs than the edit has let her led us to believe. And that's kind of the short end of the straw for her. I mean, she's going to get vindicated in the end, and it's going to be a really cool moment with a lot of, as folks see this. But
I know I've been feeling that, seeing all the Sara slander this, because we get screeners, and I've been sitting watching it like, oh y'all, like,
I know.
And you know what? We were
there too. We were there too. I'm
looking at the last week's power rankings. We wrote, but
right.
Reserve the right to change my opinion on this woman.
Shout out to Ben's friend who was like, I thought this was a slam dunk, 100%. This was going to go good. Don't know how you screwed that one up, buddy. Let's pray.
I'm excited to see her at the reunion. I think it's going to be interesting. I hope she has the opportunity to articulate a lot of this.
We watched it. I didn't have doubts about this till we saw this clip that she did. It was an interview that she did. I can't remember what the publication was. She was talking about the couch conversation. Again, couch theory, undefeated. We knew it was a redone conversation. And you noticed it in that interview, and I did too. She sounded like they were not together.
Yeah. From a couple that I had questions about to one I thought was signed, sealed, delivered. And boy, this is my biggest L in the history of Love is Blind recapping.
Yeah.
Monica and Joey. Wow. Yeah. Okay. At what point in this episode, in their wedding, did you start to feel like this might not actually be a yes?
Until she said no. I thought I was locked in. Oh, because you know what? To be honest, when I first watched it,
not when you longboarded in.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, whatever. We're just mailing it in. We're just getting to the wedding. Hurry. And then when I watched it back, it was like, okay, she was leaving a whole bunch of hints throughout this whole thing, where she was saying like, yo, I'll just have this marriage where this guy doesn't like show affection. Like there were some real concerns that she had. And the friend vibes are real. Like some of the commenters clocked it. They said it. There was some more friend vibes. I didn't believe that at all. But again, we got to edit that we learned something new after the no that we did not get throughout the season.
And what was that? What was the thing that struck you? Because I have my note on what it is.
Well, he said she never said I love you.
Okay, that wasn't what I clocked. Okay,
for me, For me, he was saying she never said I love you. My first time hearing it was at the altar. I was we just did not have that connection. And I'm of the belief that they talked about this before mutually. Totally
agree. Yeah. Completely agree on that. So the other thing he said after, I think he said it, before her. She actually kind of addressed it, but then he said it, he clarified it, he said, I'm not surprised she didn't say no. Or I'm not surprised that she did, because the family dynamic, he mentioned that her sister didn't like him, which whatever. And I think that's not why she said no. And then he said, we didn't really have like that physical element. So that is, I think, the thing that surprised me the most, David. And the thing, one of the reasons why I always thought this couple was going to make it was back in Honduras. She's like, yeah, we got busy right away.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay. But hearing that they were not really physical after that, and we learned that about another couple who we're going to get to. Actually, like none of these couples
were having sex. Like what? Minnesota.
That surprised me. That shook me a little, because I thought, they seem a little bit friend vibes, but that must just be how they communicate, and they're goofy. But they're, but apparently they were not.
Dave should have been more diligent in his question asking about the sex. He just did not ask the right people. Nobody was getting on. Nobody was bumping uglies. And except for Ben and Sara.
The other thing I'll say is all of his scenes I didn't really get a lot out of. Like I said, he longboarded in. His bros showed up in their Hawaiian fur shirts. They were throwing a football.
He got a workout in before the wedding.
He got a workout in. They were talking about her. Monica, like, yeah, Monica's down to clown. Like, she's cool. Right. But I will say my suspicion was a little bit roused watching her friends talk about it. She brought a guy friend who was like, this is where she talked about how they weren't that physical. He was asking a lot of suspicious questions that kind of made me think like, whoa, they seem a little bit apprehensive of this.
Well, because when she was describing the kiss, he was like, y'all kiss? She was like, yeah, we kissed. He was like, or how was the first kiss? She was like, yeah, it's fine. She was kind of like really nonchalant about it. Like I wasn't thinking about it. And like the guy was like, are you like, you cool with that? Like, is that like a good, like there was a lot of, she just had a lot more, like the tone of her talking about their romantic version of their relationship was so much different than I was kind of thought it was going
totally
into.
Agree. I think she said no because she thought he was going to say no.
Yeah. Yes. And she said that. She said that pretty much. Right. Yeah.
I'm going to make this decision off Joey. When they were at the altar and he did his little speech, it was so not forward looking. He was like, thank you for coming on this journey with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, she knows he's going to say no, so she's going to say no. That was when I realized it was not until, I wasn't sure until then, but looking at her, I was like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
He looked relieved when she said no. They left holding hands. They were, again, I think you're right. I think there was communication about this. Did you feel like in the moment, okay, this is over?
No, I didn't. I didn't feel like, I felt like they could, I feel like they seem like two sort of people who kind of move to the beat of their own drum, that they kind of like look past reality world. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause they're just kind of like, we could just date and see how this works out.
Yeah.
But the way that it just felt like there was something so wrong that I just don't know if they're going to like what's going on. I'm interested to see them in a reunion because I just kind of think that there was some more stuff that was like, that they were not aligned in that kind of made this over.
I also just feel like with Joey, there's just a lot maybe we weren't shown, to your point. Like I because like in the pods, he talked a lot about his family tragedies, and in the wedding, he has a wheelchair for her sister, which was, very emotional. And I just kind of felt like, I feel like I don't really know this guy.
Yeah.
We just saw this.
And she didn't seem to not know him either.
Yeah.
I think that was a big problem. He's just a really reserved type of dude.
That's exactly it.
And I just think like this format does not work out for a reserved type of dude. Like to be to get married in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I am very interested in seeing them at the reunion because he said he said he didn't see a path forward,
right?
But not in a like there's anything wrong with her kind of way. More in a like we just said no at the altar. I don't know what's next. She said she doesn't know what's next either. Probably not together, but could be
friends.
Some.
I think they'll be buds. They may have tried to. I think they'll be. I actually thought this was a really kind of beautiful story. Like this was kind of a beautiful the way that they did it. They just said it. We're not going to work at it. Was not working out. Like you said, I think they had the conversation ahead of time. They probably didn't even have many fights. They just kind of were just like this is not working out.
And like we've all had those breakups that are not bad and nobody does anything wrong and it's just not there for some reason. And like they both alluded to maybe not being each other's types physically. Right, so maybe there was like something, I don't know. But they're both good. I like them still. I just think maybe we maybe overrate because they just seem like such nice, fun people.
Right. But I mean, that's why honestly, this was one of the more beautiful weddings in Love is Blind history. Like, to be honest, like it was really a beautiful wedding. He had, like you said, the thing with his sister, his mom, like lost it when she saw that. Like that was a really, emotional moment. They walked out as buddies. Like, I mean, I think, not to get like too whatever existential, but like leaving a wedding with a friend is a good ending to a wedding. You know what I'm saying? Like you guys are like when you get married, you want to leave with the best friend. And I think they're buds.
How many times has that happened in Love is Blind history where people are like, nah, we're good. We're just going to be friends.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
I'm trying to think like.
And I don't think there's been any where they've like, which is interesting because there haven't really been many, or I can't think of any where they've had been like, all right, this isn't working. We're buds and we're going to like continue dating. It's just kind of like.
Very rare. Yeah. Sometimes we hear like, oh, they hooked up for a while or they were on and off. But yeah. All right. Well, Virginia and Devin is one of the all-time Love is Blind devastations.
Oh,
right?
Man.
Like this is okay. So this one I want to spend a little like more discussion on. Devin's getting ready. He says he gets to marry the love of his life. He hit the jackpot. There's those like win probability charts. It looks like 99%, honestly, 100% Devin saying yes. There's my husband's like, everybody keeps saying how lucky he is. And like
he knows what that means.
Yeah, like, I mean, she looks like a Disney princess.
Yes.
Just, I think I even texted you guys, like, this is one of the most stunning women I've ever seen on this show.
Yeah.
His mom and sister come. He's, and Devin, really cute with his niece. Everything seems good. I asked you before, at what point did you feel like, did you know Monica was going to say no? In the lead up stuff to the wedding, was there any point where you thought Virginia might say no? Because I was not ready.
I was more ready for this one. The vibes just seemed off. Yeah, the vibes just seemed off. Like there was just like a moment where she kind of had this confession. She was in the dress and she's sitting there and she's talking. And she was talking about how it was almost like she was preparing for how bad she was going to make him feel.
That was so inscrutable, though.
Yeah, she was just like, oh, he's such a great dude. And it was like paining her to say it. And then the camera sort of lingers. She's like sitting on the couch. She's got a wedding dress on. The camera just kind of lingers. And she just has this face of just like, I was like, oh, this might go bad for my guy. And it did. It did.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was like, I think I actually, while I was watching it, texted you a photo.
You texted me, and I was just like, oh, just you wait.
I mean, I was like trying to find stuff I was like, oh, I was like, I don't understand he had like a D with like feathers coming out of it. I didn't understand that. I was like, there's a whole plot point that there was a ladybug on her. Yeah, I was bored to tears. There were a lot of shots of their spread, which is a Netflix thing now where they constantly show us the food. In the interviews, they interview him and he talks about he was like in a rut before they met. Again, the whole narrative was like, this is the show. This is the dream outcome. This man found this incredible woman who's way out of his league. Let's just call it what it is. Yes. She is. And you and I all season have been like, she seems like she's like, this is what she's looking for. She wants a nice guy. Get to the altar. Devin, obviously, and I do. She says.
But the thing was weird. The vows are weird. Like I was in a real, like, I don't know. I was in a really dark place. I've been in a really dark place.
In his vows,
yeah, that's like, come on, dude. I was kind of like, is
he trying to guilt her?
I don't know what. Just like it makes it weird for everybody. Just talk about her smile or whatever. I don't know.
She says, "I love you so much. I'm just not ready." And it's like that Simpsons meme where you can see the heart implode. And like, I mean, that man
lost it. And there is so much. A
lot happens in this moment.
We talk so much about the music. Let me make sure I get this right. The music of Love Is Blind, and like, because they were using like radio songs, things like that. But also, there's been a joke in the years past about how like the song is like saying exactly what's happening. So as she says no, and he's weeping, I thought you were my one, and boy, now both of us can be lonely.
His family reacted like the president had been like shot or something.
Look. Maybe I need more. Maybe I need to go to Ben's church and somebody pray for me or something like that. There was a moment where like his niece is like, "What happened? I don't understand." And it's like kind of a heartbreaking moment. And Devin's dad leans up and says, "She said no."
Believe it, unless I misunderstood, it was his mom who said, "I don't understand these girls. He doesn't deserve this."
Okay, I wanna hone in on this because I know Devin's mom said some wild there in that church. I know she said some like all of those things that Virginia was worried about that family came out up in that church, and I want to see the rough cut of what that family said about her, because when that mama said
her face.
Oh, I know it. I bet it got wild in that church. I don't know if they said to her face. Her mama said all of the things that Virginia was worried about with that family. I will say this. I don't know what's wrong with these girls. Is the nicest clip or nicest sound that they probably got from her mama. Like we saw her true colors are somewhere on the cutting room floor of that moment because she was hot.
That would partially explain why Virginia was, I wouldn't say cold after, that wasn't the word, but she was like, listen, I'm going to explain myself. Like, I do wonder if their reaction emboldened her a little bit to be a little bit more aggressive about her, maybe revealing some stuff. Maybe she didn't know if she was going to reveal, which I'm going to get to in a second, because it was just the red wedding. Like, it was just devastation. I want to know what her family was thinking too. I mean, they just followed her out. We didn't really get that much of them.
I'm sure. I bet her family, because we didn't see the parent. Did we see we saw the mom.
Her mom was just very nice.
Very nice. But I think there was like some like, dude, he's got a Kobe sleeve. Like, what are we doing?
Okay, this is what has to be unpacked. Virginia on the couch after. Yeah. She says, I want to hear your insight into this specific quote. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I wanted to protect him.
Yes.
Pause. There are topics I didn't want to push him on, like politics, things we didn't get to, we didn't get deep enough, sexual relationship. Okay, so before we get to the revealing, there's a thing she reveals as well. I want to get your thoughts on how she phrased this, because I went back and watched it. I was like, this is very intentional and very specific.
So, all right. So what we have, to me, this is what we have here, is like, we'd always talked about Virginia sort of adhering to this, like, sort of, I don't know if it's like a gender role thing or just like a build up my man type of thing. And there's like, culturally, what my interpretation of this is she didn't want to make a black man look bad on TV. Right. And so she knew that there were things that like would make him look bad. She knows that, hey, this dude comes from a MAGA family and is possibly a conservative and a Trump supporter and all those things. And I don't want to push him to say these things on camera. So I am going to protect him. So I would imagine that means a lot of these conversations happen off camera. And, and what's interesting is like, this is a common thread with a lot of these black women and men on Love is Blind. Like we saw with Ashley trying to protect Tyler from some of the parenting things, even AD and Clay, the way she was saying we were talking about some of these things off camera, didn't want to say these things off camera. Like this is a common gender thing, but also like a black woman, black men thing also of like, I have a larger responsibility culturally to not embarrass this black man on TV. And either whether those conversations happen off camera or not, what she saw was intentionally kept from the audience. And I think to our point earlier, whatever happened in that church made her say, all right, I'm gonna let y'all know that there's like some other stuff that's going on.
I'm gonna defend myself here. And then there's the thing I'm gonna get to that she revealed separately.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So the other thing, I think, going off of what you said about like, what were we not shown? So I think with this one, some of it probably is conversations that were had off camera.
Right.
But I think some of it is also just this woman being extraordinarily non-confrontational and not in the way she presents to the world naturally obscures some of the things that she feels. I think the conversation they had on the bed that was shown, pretty in full was a game changer or so the other thing I want to get to or I address, she said we didn't get to it with the sexual relationship. They weren't having sex. Right. And I go back to that conversation on the bed. She's like, so how are you feeling about us physically? And when he's like, I'm the most comfortable with you I've ever been. There is some I'm like, now looking back, knowing what we know.
Yeah.
Imagine hearing that from a man you're not sleeping with.
Yeah.
Like, I think she's probably thinking, well, this is the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What? I don't even know we don't even do this.
Yeah.
So, and this guy's fine with that. He's not even, he won't even talk about it with me.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he won't even talk about the fact that we're not having sex. Similarly with the politics, again, she was very deliberate with how she put her words. We didn't even get to it. He didn't even want to talk about it. And there's a through line, obviously, with the Sara Ben thing, which is women with men who don't even want to talk about it. Because if they talk about it, they have to say what they really think. And they don't want to say that on camera. And these women are not. And I loved something she said, which, again, very intentional language. When she talks about his politics being obviously different from hers. And she says, he told her, I vote with my faith as like a stand-in for, I have these politics. And she said, that was off-putting because I also vote with my faith.
Yes.
And I love that sentence. And I thought that captured so much in so few words.
Yeah, I was, actually it was funny. My partner was here. She has missed out on this season because we've been zooming through it. But she walked in actually at that point, not knowing any context, and heard that exact quote of like, he said that he votes with his faith, but I vote with mine. And she was like, yes, absolutely. Because like, you can't position one as and it was dismissive. It's very dismissive. Like and when you watch back that scene of them talking in the bed, she kind of like in her own way was taken aback by him saying that, he said, I vote my faith. And she was like, whoa, well, like my faith aligns with this other thing too. Like what are we talking about here?
Yeah. I do like, I almost want to watch her and Sarah's things side by side because like, what you had was two women who genuinely seemed open to the possibility of hearing these men out, but there was nothing to hear out.
Yeah.
And I think both of them gave the same explanation at the end. She also said something that I haven't mentioned, which is as she's giving her explanation, she throws this in, which I don't think she would have mentioned if she wasn't mad. We received a check for a wedding present. His mother told me or something. He didn't bring it up, and that made me not trust him. David, woo, buddy.
Told you that man ain't had no job. Told you from the beginning that man ain't have no job. Scamming, money scamming. Devin, I knew it. Knew it.
I don't think she intended to bring that up.
She did, but she was hot about it. Something because she didn't even, it's an interesting contrast to how she laid out the reasons for saying no, which were very thought out and very intentional. And the way she phrased this was a little like, and another thing, right?
And by the way,
all right.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, because it was also just not like her to kind of. I think this again. I think this is a woman who does not reveal a lot, plays it close to the vest. And so, to kind of go back to our discussion about editing, I don't actually feel like there's that much we weren't shown. Right. I think this one is more about this woman just being very reserved and not revealing a lot. Generally.
I do think we could have known about the sex thing, though. That was, and it's a fascinating thing that we didn't know about any of their sex, except for Sara and Ben. But with the other three, we know anything about what they were doing or not doing sexually, and I think it informs some of the stuff. Like it informs a connection, it informs a surprise. All that stuff is interesting. For Devin, I will say that it's probably a actual fear, phobia of mine, to be at an altar with the most beautiful woman you'll ever lay eyes on in your life, and her saying no, and that it's downhill from there. Oh my God, that guy, he boo-hooed in a way that it's a
generational fumble.
It really is.
Listen, I'm not gonna say I would have picked differently with my yeses or nos all season long if I knew who was smashing and who wasn't. But it is like when you find out a player was injured and you didn't know when you or something. It is very important information. Yes. If I had known this whole time that they weren't having sex and there wasn't a religious reason for it, I would have been well, damn.
Right. I started him on my fantasy team and he had a crack rib the whole time. Nobody told me.
Because sometimes they don't. And there's a reason they're religious. Yeah. A lot of these people are religious. It's fine. It's totally fine. But this didn't seem like it was a mutually agreed upon thing with them. Perhaps. Same with Joey and Monica, where
So you're of the belief that she did not want to have sex with him.
No. I kind of got the impression he wasn't trying.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's where I'm at with it. I didn't think it was a one-way thing. You have, I don't know.
She brought it up. She
brought it up, and he, conservative religious beliefs may have played a part in that. Yeah. Maybe she's like, hey, I want to. We may just be aligned differently on this thing too. There's part of that too. I don't know.
So Taylor and Daniel, honestly, David, if they hadn't gotten married, I might have had to turn in my Love is Blind recapping permission slip, because I was like, I felt so sure about this one for a while. We both did. And also, this was at the end, so we were like, "There's no way."
They usually end them with a good one.
She writes him a letter. It's actually really cute. They're cute. Honestly, I've said, "Hey, if you're not busy later and would like to get married, I'd like that very much." I liked it. They have these people have a very shared sensibility and sense of humor, and it goes beyond their love of Christmas, although that's weird. So we do find out they also have been waiting, but it is not a tension point. I think they're just religious. But
I was also surprised by that. I was surprised they'd waited.
Yeah.
But they were so excited to get it on that night. But they were so like chill about it. He was like, we weren't kind of like waiting up. It reminds me of The Office when he was taking her on a date and they were like, where are you going to eat? And he was like, you going to have sex? She was like, yeah. He was like, there's probably some soup.
Yeah. I mean, this one's just locked and loaded from the beginning. They get to the altar. Their families are cute. The other thing is, like, I feel like with Love is Blind, sometimes during the wedding scenes leading up to the wedding, when you're trying to figure out if they're going to get married, I have this theory, which is like, if you're on a plane and you're worried about turbulence, look at the flight attendants. Okay, and if the flight attendants are calm, you feel calm. Everybody at this wedding knew they were getting married. Yes. Zero tension, zero worries. Not a single person was asking difficult questions. Right. They were all like, he's the best. She's the best. This is happening. At the altar, I mean, literally, there's no suspense here. She says, I've never felt more sure of anything in my life. He says, my soul has known your soul for a lifetime. My husband and looks up and he says, well, a little bit longer because he followed her on Instagram. She says, I do. Everybody's happy. Did you like this wedding?
Yeah, it was fine. It was fine. Question. The big question, though. Is this the definitive Love is Blind success story? Not the best couple, because there's like couples that I like more. Yeah. But he got what
he came for.
Yes, the actual definitive Love is Blind story of a dude who came in with the insecurity, right? Met somebody who didn't, and like fell in love, and she did not care, and sent that thing to the moon. Is this like the final, this experiment works, like success story for like the definitive Love is Blind story?
It definitely is. I feel like these types of Love is Blind stories always involve the woman maybe making like a mild sacrifice. He actually thought he looked really, it's funny because we were roasting the people who said he looked like Leo. I actually was thinking like in the wedding, I was like, oh, he actually does have a little bit of a resemblance facially.
See, there you go. He's a heartthrob.
He's lovely. He was like, yeah, without knowing what she looked like, because at the end they asked him all his Love is Blind, and he's like, I had never seen this woman in my life. Couldn't have recognized her on the street. If you'd drawn her in a lineup, I wouldn't have been able to pick her. No, I think you're right. There, listen.
Oh, which reminds me, I want to go back real quick to one thing for the Virginia and Devin wedding that I forgot to mention. That the pastor goes, we ignore superficial things like looks and finances, and you can see Virginia like, I don't know how superficial that one is, lady.
You know what? Like, ultimately, like the other three couples, it wasn't physical appearances that did in these men. Yeah, I think to answer your question, though, I do think this is the like perfect Love is Blind story. I mean, he even had the sister, right? Yeah, like his motivation for going on the show. It's a great story. Like it is. These are two people who truly should be together, and that became clear after the initial like drama pretty quickly. We were just like, wow, they really are compatible. Oh my god, like every little date they went on, there was zero tension. They were finishing each other's sentences. They have the same sense of humor up until the very end, in which they both said even the same sense of humor to the point where they're both saying like Operation Consummation. And I was just like, oh God, can't do this.
Tough hang as a couple, I would imagine. Tough hang, but perfect for each other. They said Bueller together, which is an obscure reference to a movie that nobody's seen.
All right. Well, that of course brings me to...
I've spent most of this week trying to think of a sports comp to Daniel's turnaround of this thing, to where it seemed after episode 6 that he was dead in the water, and I cannot think of a comeback story that is as remarkable. To be the only surviving couple after episode 6, and the same like season as like Joey and Monica, to be the only two standing after what happened in episode 6, it is absolutely unreal.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either. I'm like trying to think of like maybe a playoff team. Like if the Commanders had made the Super Bowl, maybe.
It's like if the Mavericks win the championship this year. Yeah.
Well, David, for that reason, standing alone, if you had told me this back in week 1, week 2, week 3, that our guy Daniel would have won. Daniel won Love is Blind.
Absolutely. I can't, this may be one of the biggest reality TV show winners that we've ever seen on it. Like, to come back from that is unbelievable.
And I'll put Taylor at 2. Again, the only last surviving couple.
Yep.
She also, I feel like, found the person she wanted. Like, I genuinely believe these people will be married forever.
Yes.
I genuinely do.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So, by the way, I'm going to wait for the reunion to include our queen, Molly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was fun to see the internet, by the way.
Yes, they love, yes.
Correctly.
Came in and just wrecked shop and walked out. Just an unbelievable cameo appearance. Like, if this were a Marvel movie, they'd be doing her Disney Plus spinoff right now.
Like on a PER, like efficiency basis, Molly's stats this season will never be matched. Dun, da, da. However,
unbelievable comeback. Even higher than last week when we said if she says no, she'll jump up here. She jumped up even higher than that. Unbelievable comeback from Sara. Sara, unfamiliar with your game, you win.
Watching these two women subvert, because here we go. I'm gonna put Virginia next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this I'm curious to see if she gets any blowback. I don't think she should, but she might. They both bite, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I will say, for me, watching these women not settle was extremely gratifying as a viewer.
So this is the other thing that was really interesting about these weddings, that like in a lot of these seasons past, we saw the red flags and there were obvious like things that like these people were like these things that are like may not be red flags to other people. There wasn't like drama, there wasn't cheating, there wasn't like a lot of this stuff. It was just like, we're not aligned and I want something different and I'm done. And I think in previous seasons, I think there have been couples that were like, I don't know, and they decided to say yes, unless there was like some sort of big mega thing. These people were just like very sensible in their decisions, which is a and again, like it kind of goes back to the question: is like, is this a function of the people or just a function of like this is what the show is now? Like season 1, nobody knew, they were putting all their business out there and all this stuff. Now you have an understanding of how the cameras work, how the production works. Is this just a function of how the show is going to be going forward? People understand. We can have these conversations off camera. We can get to this point, or the production understands it differently. Like it seems like we're in a like evolution of the show in this season.
Yeah, I think that both women were really given the chance to explain themselves in a way maybe I was worried they wouldn't be given.
Right.
I think I almost wondering if I have to think they both watched this season with some frustration.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably felt like, oh, there's stuff you got that I saw with these men, maybe. So I hope that what we saw at the end will be enough for people to truly understand their thinking. Because like I made sure to like write down what they said, because I think both of them said things that I thought were quite profound.
Yeah.
And really articulated it, like with Sara saying he wasn't curious about my mind, with Virginia, saying that like I also vote with my faith. Like I was like, those are really good explanations. And they're not just like, we are different. Like it's, and I think it'll be oversimplified by some people as being like, they're just different. They're not tolerant. It's like, no. There's a lot more going on here. So.
Yeah, and to happen in like, it's such a fascinating thing to happen in Minneapolis, like the center of so much of this political like stuff in this country, which Sara mentioned herself. She said, hey, you can't be like that in Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like where it goes down, you know?
Again, credit to Sara. She was like, this changed my life.
Yeah.
And then she stood on it.
And she said, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah.
And like what was interesting was that we've seen so many even going back to Brittany being like, everybody's a little gay. Like we've seen so many people be able to articulate themselves or like present it in a way that allowed them to articulate themselves after the fact in a way that like we didn't see as the sort of decision, like in the mix of what they were deciding.
All right. So Ben versus Devin. I don't like Ben more than Devin.
Oh, okay.
I do think Devin, unfortunately, has to have the biggest L of the season. Generational fumble.
Oh, man.
He was at the gates of heaven. The doors were right there.
All he had to do was just...
Because I don't think Ben's even that bummed, to be honest.
No, he doesn't care. Devin is heartbroken, and all you had to do was read a book. Just pick up a book. Just pick up just like be engaged. But you know what? I knew it. Internet is going to be on this too. When the man showed up, I was like, so I was excusing the lineup a little bit. He's busy. You know, you're in a pod. You don't know. When he pulled up, that was the lineup choice. That was the haircut. That was the lineup choice for the wedding. I knew so much about the man. It told me so much. It told me everything about what Virginia was hesitant about. It told me about his family. Told me about what his thoughts were when he pulled up to the wedding with the hairline looking like that.
I don't want to pile on our guy anymore. I feel like...
And he steals money.
Well, okay. I feel like at the reunion, he is going to get a really kind, soft landing. I am interested in seeing how they handle Ben. I really hope that they are direct with their questioning about their conversations about serious stuff. I am dubious that they will be, though. He's the one guy who I think is good. Like, you know, at the reunion every year, there's somebody who like kind of like goes scot-free. I mean, I guess Alex, we'll see.
Alex, we'll see how Alex. That's what I was thinking. It would be one of those. Some people in the fort. Madison might get a after the stuff with Alex. She might get a light tap. My question is, I wonder between Sara and Virginia, who's gonna come with like
receipts,
guns blazing, right? Like who's gonna go scorched earth? Because I'm not sure if there's like a clique. I'm not sure if there's like a group chat clique.
Point. Yes, that has happened in the past. Yeah,
that we usually have. So I wonder who's gonna come out guns blazing.
It's funny. I've seen some commenters be like, if a woman did it, in the past, a lot of the villains, especially the ones who have gotten away with at the reunions, have been women. But this season, there's just not female villains. They're just took out that way. Madison maybe had a little bit of that in the beginning, but she got eliminated too early. So usually, you and I have talked about this at reunions. It feels like the girl clique protects one of their own, but there's really no one to protect here in the same way. So maybe the boy clique will defend Dave or Ben. It does seem like there's a boy clique. Yeah,
it seems like there's a boy clique, and the boy clique it's going to make all the boys look worse. I think it's going to be rough.
Many things to see, such as, are Mason and Meg still together? Did any of these people hook up after? Joey and Monica, I have questions about.
Madison, Alex, that stuff.
Has Devin fixed his hair? All these answers will be had at the reunion. David and I will recap it, of course, as we do every year. More information on that coming your way on the socials. If you're listening to this, you can watch the YouTube as well. I truly could encourage it because we have a generational graphic designer, Brian. Otherwise, if you're watching on YouTube, go subscribe, rate, and review. This has been Love is Kimes Season 8. We will be back with your evening.